Here's Shiraz. So Shiraz is a brand strategist, award-winning copywriter, and principal at Alchemy 7 Creative in St. Louis, Missouri. And she has also been a documentary photographer, a published poet, internationally touring spoken word artist, and an activist. So talk about diversity. This is pretty impressive. She has also worked on brands from the Fortune 500 to smaller clients, smaller community efforts. A piece she wrote for The Girl Effect called The Clock is Ticking took one of 10 ads worth spreading given at the TED conference in that award's first year. So, wow, TED conference. She's also currently the curriculum director and program facilitator for the I Create boot camp in Dallas. So she gets around, and she and I share something, and that is a taste for scotch served neat. And if you're not a scotch fan, that means it's served plain, no ice, no mixer. So I am going to introduce CAMI next. And CAMI is waving. So CAMI is a creative director and a mom with 16 years in the industry. After beginning her career at Hal Riney and Partners in San Francisco, she joined Publicis Seattle to help launch the T-Mobile brand in the US. And there she was promoted to creative director and created award-winning work for T-Mobile, as well as working on Citi, Chevy, Ballpark, and UNICEF. And after a short stint in Paris, she circled back to the Bay Area, where she will now be taking on the role of creative director at Swirl. And woo, congratulations. And last but not least, I'm going to introduce Nancy Hannon. So here we have Nancy. She is Senior Vice President and Group Creative Director at the Martin Agency. She was lead creative director for the world's largest retailer, Walmart, for almost 3 years, and currently oversees Hanes, guiding multiple campaigns aimed at both women and men. A recent TV spot for soft teas was honored by Adweek, so not bad. And in addition, she is the lead on the American Cancer Society's More Birthdays campaign, which I think we've all seen. She's a 20-year agency veteran who has worked on Reebok, Sears, Maybelline, Procter & Gamble, and others. And since moving to Richmond, Virginia, she has become, and with her family, she has become an avid sporting clays enthusiast, which I thought was so interesting. I had to look it up, and I found out it is shooting at clay pigeons that move in an unpredictable manner like real birds would. So, so welcome to our panelists. What we thought we would do today is each panelist will take anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes to give just their top thoughts on mentoring women. And after that, I'm going to ask a few questions that I gathered in advance from other women that they would want, things they would want to know about mentoring women. And then we're going to open up to you. We wanted to leave plenty of time for questions from everyone here. So be thinking of your questions. And we all brought plenty of business cards. So if you have a question we aren't able to address or you want to talk to us afterwards about mentoring, please feel free. So we are going to start with Shiraz.
And I'll stand up because I'm vertically challenged, so can see only a few eyes. So when I talk about mentoring women, I'll start with my own personal story because this day is pretty monumental for me for a couple of reasons. My very first female creative director is sitting right here, Shantika Sigers. Yes. This was a woman when I was a shaved head 20-something-year-old coming from Miami Ad School up to Chicago, put a foot in it. But at the same time, in a very loving and very real way. So I thank her. And also Susan Hoffman is here, who was my creative director, actually ECD, while I was at Wyden and Kennedy Portland. What I do as far as being a part of the I Create Bootcamp for the Marcus Graham Project is I not only mentor women, I also mentor young men as well. Because what we do during our summer program is that we take them down to Dallas, Texas for 11 weeks and they start their own ad agency. These are college students, graduate students, or people looking to make a lateral move. What the difference that I've noticed in mentoring the guys versus mentoring the women, there's a very real fear. Case in point, we had a situation this summer where a gentleman who was captain of his football team in high school and college, account guy, used his size and his voice to intimidate the women whenever they had a position that was different than his. So just imagine, you know, me sitting there and I'm like, yo, this is not 1960, right? You know, and I'm literally dealing with this with my students in 2012. So part of mentoring young women is like, you stand, you have 2 feet, right? You stand and you do not move from your position. And I don't give them, I'm not one of the most PC people, right? You know, and I'm like, you don't move from your position. You don't go to your feminine wiles and try to, you know, over-sexualize yourself to make this person be gentle with you. You sit there, you listen, and then you reiterate, especially if you know that what you are saying is of value. And a lot of young women just need that reassurance that what they are saying is right, that their ideas are good, because I've seen the intimidation that a lot of our young women face. And sadly enough, I endured it myself, you know, with myself in general market and multicultural. You know, I'm a small woman. However, at the same time, I know how to use my words. You know, so when it comes to mentoring women, we really need to reinstill that it's okay to be yourself. And you don't have to go to these default things that are cool for patriarchy and misogynistic belief. You don't have to go that way. And I also want to say out here, with a lot of older women in the audience, I'm only 34, and what I've recognized in older women and the younger generation, we really need to understand that they have a different way of working. Millennials are different human beings. They're wired differently. And I will definitely say you have to meet these people where they are and actually find some commonality to bridge that gap. They don't like being talked at. They like being talked to. And young women, well, they know how to bite back because ironically enough, I call it an emotional androgyny. A lot of young women are afraid to be feminine and they get just uber masculine when they feel as though that another woman who is older than them is trying to talk at them and that their point isn't right and you're not creative enough and so on and so forth. We need to take a step back and we need to take a good listen and we need to let these young women know that, you know what? You don't have to be emotionally blank. You don't have to be androgynous or asexual. We really need to, and this is a psychological thing that I'll get into about self-agency. A lot of people do not own who they are anymore. And I don't know if any of you don't have to stand up and raise your hand, be like, oh God, it's me. You know, it's like, I had that moment. You know, hugs later. But, you know, but we need to instill and reinstill that it is okay to have a sense of agency when you walk into the door, and that as a woman, it's okay to be whole when you walk into an environment. You don't need to prop your tits up and that whole thing, or wear, you know, tight skirts or pants or anything like that to assert yourself, because that's asserting your sexuality. That's not asserting yourself. But we need to just have that hard conversation. And you know what? If a young woman needs to cry, let her cry. The next time that I hear an older woman in advertising be like, oh, what are you crying for? That's the stereotype. You know what? Guess what not crying leads to? Drinking. And all of us are in advertising. We know all about vice, right? Drinking, a joint during lunch, you know, something, you know. We need to be able to have our young women be emotionally available. Because far too often I find that when young women are not emotionally available, they can't create. They shut down and they start doubting themselves. They'll have work. They will literally have work, amazing ideas in their notebooks and on their computers, and will not want to present anything. Why? They're scared. They're not open. They're not available anymore. So in mentoring young women, we need to value all of those things that make us unique and make us uniquely different from men. We need to be available emotionally because that leads to great ideas.
That was very awesome. A hard one to follow for sure. I'm CAMI, and I actually have been in the business longer than 16 years. I started 20 years ago as a creative assistant, and one of the things about mentoring is to be a role model. And a woman who's here, Diane Moe, she was standing here. Oh, there she is. She was a wonderful role model to me when I was just an assistant, because I saw that a woman could be a creative director, and she had a child and all this sort of stuff, and that really stuck with me. And then I disappeared and you disappeared, and I was in the world of men. So I'll give you an anecdote about my new mentors after I left Diane and was hired somewhere else. A guy, we'll call him Joe, that was his name. He loved me. He was my biggest supporter. He gave me every assignment. At the time I was working in a design group, so it was not, cutting edge, crazy, stuff. But I was really good and worked really hard. I had a voice, and I went to him and said, Joe, I want to do more traditional stuff. I think I'm pretty good. I can do this. What do you think? Can I show you a couple ads? And he said, I just don't think you can do it. And I said, that's kind of weird. And he said, this guy came over to me yesterday, and he had a book, and one of the ads had a ceiling fan with a bra hanging off of it. And he's like, I just can't see you doing that. Can you see yourself doing that? And I said, I don't know. What was the product? But the point is that he didn't see me as somebody who could write like he expected a copywriter to write. And therefore, I was not going to be of value. Well, it pissed me off. So I went and I got a book together, and I found other people who did think that my work was good, and my work started speaking for itself. And I went off to Seattle, a little bit to Paris, and became a creative director, and I worked on a lot of reputable brands. And I came back to San Francisco recently, and I was in a position where I was looking at his work to make sure it was edgy enough, which it wasn't, to be honest with you. And so the reason I bring this up is because it's not just important to be mentored, it's important to have a female mentor. Men can teach us the craft of advertising. They cannot teach us how to be successful women in advertising. And there's very few of us. I mean, we're all here, so it looks like we're a lot, but there are so few of us. And it's really dawned on me, and I'm so happy that you are actually actively doing something about this, that I've done nothing with this. I've done nothing with this information. I haven't established a formal mentoring program. I've championed women. I've given women opportunities when I think other men wouldn't have. I've helped women when they've come back to the workforce after giving birth, because I was in that position myself, and it's really, really hard. And I love women. But I've mentored women and men kind of the same way. And a lot of that was based on the craft in the work. And women need so much more than that, because it is just so much more of a complex journey for us in the creative department. We're perceived differently. We have to work harder to be taken seriously. The second we're taken seriously, we take off and have a baby a lot of the time. We come back, then we're trying to do this double job. And it's just a lot more to navigate, and we just need more help. So I'm really happy that I've realized this, because I'd like to do something about it. And I would like to encourage everyone to do something about it. And I think it's much more than just the micro helping someone on your staff to get better opportunities. I think that we have to start, and this I'm going to steal a word from yesterday, that the ad salon, export our stories and be role models for the whole industry, and let people know that we're there, and figure out how with technology and whatever else we can help women through these obstacles, because we're really good, and we deserve it.
My name is Nancy Hannon. I'm a Group Creative Director at the Martin Agency. I am one of 6 GCDs, and I'm the only female GCD. So I have a lot going on in my head about, women in business and mentoring, and I thought maybe I can share everything that I know about Martin's approach to mentoring, which is great, but I thought coming off of this amazing day that I could simply share my thoughts, sort of like a mentorship rant. So bear with me. Here I go. It goes like this. Girls, I didn't know what I didn't know. Ask. Find out what you don't know. Make demands. Ask for time, ask for money. Your commitment, 100%. Their commitment, 100%. You already work 150%. That will never change. Get it going in. Exposure. Market yourselves, especially now. Manage your careers. Look 50 yards down the track. Your brand, your client's brand. Women, take control now. Especially the young, whip-smart, single, or senior level, newly married moms-to-be. Don't push away from the table. You can take that job on your terms. Create a different playing field. Own it. Newly pregnant teammates, you have options. Write your own job. Remember, negotiate. When you return, don't talk about your kids constantly. Nobody cares. Guys talk about their kids constantly. Everybody cares. But move on. Forget the because this, because that. Forget I'm sorry. You don't owe explanations. Create boundaries. And if you don't kick yourself. Where are we in the brands? We've talked about this. Women are not reflected in the work that's created. Seriously, let's do this for our clients. Do work that moves women forward. We are asked to raise our voices. I'm 3% shouting. Shout louder than 97%? No way. Drowned out. Language barrier? Yes. Boys? No boys. I love you, boys. But women are buying everything. Earn the right to the conversation. Learn the language of the women in the brand. Do work that moves women forward. Mentor, butterfly effect, show by example, access, teaching, sharing, higher levels, reach out, put women together, drinks, coffee, openness, glue. Seems small? Huge. Support group, we have each other's back. Have a woman's back. Community, it takes a village of women to take care of a village of women. Recruiters, recruit women. Do work that moves women forward. Women, whatever percent. Female CEOs, COOs, moms and chiefs, CCOs, in schools, in jobs, on the planet. Together, mentor the next generation of mentors. Let us be outnumbered by ourselves. Let's drive up that 3%. And together, let's do work that moves women forward. So that's where my head's at. I had to get it out. I can't say. But I think that we have to continue this conversation. It's a wonderful experience. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we all agree that was pretty glorious. So next year we're going to have the same session again, and we're going to have Nancy back, and we're going to have a soundtrack. And she's going to be wearing like a different outfit. Okay, so I'm going to lead us off with just a couple questions, and then again, I'm going to open it up to you. We really just want this to be like a conversation between all us women in the room. So I'm going to start off with a question that was submitted by actually one of my colleagues at Addison Whitney, and that was, how do you effectively mentor someone in an agency environment? My experience with agencies is that there is barely enough time to get your own work done, much less spend time with another team member to mentor him or her. How are you making time in your busy work schedule to mentor women? So, who would like to take that also?
I call bullshit on that statement. No, for real. It's like we talked about work-life balance, right? It should be work-life mentor balance. And one of the things that holds us back in our industry, I'll stand up. One of the things that holds us back in our industry is always making this excuse. Well, I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. If you have time to go take a walk around the block or to go get coffee, you can tap that young woman who you've seen struggling in the agency on the shoulder and say, honey, come walk with me. Let's go talk. So I think what we need to do is we need to change. We need to shift our thinking. from, okay, I do have time. Now let me see who I need to give my time to, and just become a little more diligent about that.
Yeah, I think I have the same opinion. I think it's important to just reach out whenever you can, tap you. And I think as women, we have this sort of kinetic feeling that we know when somebody's feeling a certain way. And if we can just touch on that and even just acknowledge, hey, let's have coffee sometime, at least then they know there's access, which I think is key. And that's my point of view.
Yeah, I think that as women, we naturally are mentors, and I think that people actually gravitate to us for mentorship. So it's really hard actually to go get coffee without somebody standing up beside you and saying, hey, listen, what do you think about this? This happened. And I think that it should be part of every day. It should be part of every conversation. It should be part of every work critique session. Like you were saying, like if you believe in something, help them say, no, you know what, don't apologize. Say that this is your idea. I might disagree with you, but that's okay. So I think there's opportunities endlessly every single day as part of being a creative director.
All right, so our next question is, would a mentor program, in other words, with mentors assigned to mentees, be effective to have within an agency environment, or do you feel that something informal is better? And I'm actually going to start off with Nancy, because she and I talked about this a little bit on the phone, and then we'll go to CAMI and then to Shiraz.
I'm going to sit. I think that mentorship works best when it's less formal. At least that's the way that it works best for me, and I know that's the way that it works at the Martin Agency. They've actually held back and let each department decide how they want to approach it. But sometimes I think with cynical creatives, which we are, making anything too formal, people tend not to take it as seriously. It becomes this thing that you have to join, and we're not joiners or whatever. But I think when it becomes a natural, organic fit, it's amazing how it becomes something that it's a two-way street, and you become invested, and it's not something that somebody threw a person at you. You actually created this relationship and access, and you might choose to see that person twice a year and do little check-ins, or you might have a constant sort of relationship that you keep fostering and keep helping, and you might see that somebody's really heading down the wrong path, like black ice, and you might go in, or a series of us will go in and it's like Black Hawk Down. We gotta help this one. So I think that the informality actually makes it much more successful.
I totally agree. I think that at one point, an agency I was at tried to get together some formal mentoring process, and it just didn't work. I think people felt uncomfortable and awkward, and and they were busy at the wrong times and all that sort of stuff. What I do think would be valuable would be to have some kind of formal mentoring in the community. Or, and by formal, I mean just making sure that women know they have access to people in the community and in the greater industry. Because a lot of women are the only females in their creative department, or the only creative directors, or the, one of two junior creatives. So I think that there should be something structured just so that something exists in the community.
I'm actually a part of a sorority called the Sorority of the Unicorns. I'm a black female creative director. It's like, okay, let's be honest. There's 3 black women in here, So what I have found with mentorship in an agency environment, yes, it is. You try and do the formal thing, it doesn't work. Organic definitely works. However, I will say this, is that even in the organic thing, negotiate what that relationship will be, what that mentorship will look like. Because some people you only probably will have once a month, quarterly, or something like that, and communicate with the person who has come to you for mentorship. Because one of the most painful things that I've seen with a lot of young women is that they go to women and they get dismissed. It's like, oh, I don't have time. And then it's like, shit, you were the only woman in the agency that I thought I could talk to, and now I have no one, And if you don't have time, suggest someone. You know, it's so easy just to make a referral. Just be like, look, I don't have the time, but I know somebody who is really, really great, because that's one of the things that has helped me as a Black female in the ad industry. It's like sometimes, with the exception of working at Burrell Communications, where I saw no glass ceiling. The agency was ran by 2 African American women, and I had 4 Black female creative directors. So the mentorship was there. It was a sisterhood, you know. However, when I went over into the general market world, it's like, hey, I'm here, you know, but there was no one else that looked like me from the same cultural background, because that's another thing we need to pay attention to with mentoring young women. If you have a young woman who is lesbian, do you know how to mentor her? If she is Asian or Latino, there are certain cultural differences in our young women's background. We're not a monolith. Even if you're a white female, did you come from an upper echelon family or a poor family or a middle class family? We really have to be open to the cultural diversity of women in advertising when it comes to that mentorship model, even from an organic level. Mm-hmm.
When I do have someone who is, I have a young woman who's working for me, who came just from Africa within like the last, 4 months. And so she's just trying to adapt to live in the US. And she's come to me, and how do you think about those cultural differences when you don't really know?
I would say 2 things. Well, actually 3 things. Care, have compassion, and do your research. Dig into that person's culture. Talk to their parents. Find somebody in the industry or not in the industry and truly talk to them. Like, find out, like, would that be offensive if we did this or if we said that? It's really that simple and just that hard. It's care, compassion, and research.
Awesome. That is actually a really interesting point. I bet if we just went around the room and said, our backgrounds, we would, no one would be the same. So. Okay, I am going to ask one more question before opening it up to general questions. The question is, how did you choose your mentors and how do you use them? So, who wants to go first?
I came into this business when it was in Chicago, and there were actually a lot of women in senior positions. They hit their heads on the ceiling and they have like shards of glass in their skulls right now, but at the time when I was coming up, I saw women around me and many of them were very kind to me, and I was able to get a lot of great guidance, and as the years have gone on, they have become my friends, and so now I have this wonderful bench of amazing wise women who give me a lot of guidance. And so I think that I didn't stumble into those relationships. We found those relationships together, forged those relationships. And then now at the Martin Agency, there's a handful of amazing women, some of the most senior level women at the agency. We make an effort every quarter to have dinner. And they're all from different departments, and we never, ever, bag that dinner. We go to that dinner, and it is so enriching for me because of, again, the wisdom of the different perspective, and we consider it a support group more than sort of mentoring, even though I do think there's a lot of individual mentoring going on, and it is so enriching, and I would stress that everybody should make that effort to find that. And we found that because I made a comment about, what's it with the guy down the hall, brand new guy, he's talking to that guy, they're senior level, and they're talking about golf. And I'm right here. And they didn't invite me to that. I don't play golf, but they didn't invite me. Like, what's that all about? And I just happened to say that, and we're like, this is our golf. So, again, maybe, I don't know that we're segregating ourselves because I also shoot skeet sporting clays, and we bring the guys into that. So I also think that if you create something that's interesting that everybody wants to do, you can actually obviously mentor. You could have cross mentoring, but you can also make it more diverse as well, because I do think I don't want to isolate myself. I actually want to have a nice balance, because I think that's what we're all looking for.
I'm thankful that I have male and female mentors. And the way that I use them, a lot of my male mentors, when I decided to leave Wyden and just like take some time off to see if I wanted to start my own agency, and I was doing the thing down in Dallas with the students and stuff, it was Jeff Williams. I told this man I'll write his name across the sky. I love him that much. And Hal Curtis and Tyler Wisnam. Three amazing creative directors that believed in me no matter what. And these are the guys that I consult on business and even on personal stuff, because ironically enough, I chose all male mentors who were like secret feminists. Like Hal and Tyler are madly in love with their wives. Jeff Williams will support female artists. Like, this guy will purposely go to art shows and ask, where are the female artists? Like, where's the art by women? And he makes sure he buys it. So I'm glad that I have a bit of a eye for picking really good guys to mentor me. And how I use my female mentors, it's just like, that is a sisterhood. I talk to them about stuff that men can't possibly even explore, and even the really hard stuff. And some of my mentors, ironically enough, all don't come from the ad world. Some of them are old clients that I had. Actually, I do a lot of work back home with the Regional Arts Commission. So I have people who are up in the art world who don't know anything about advertising, but know human beings, and could give you advice on how to be a better human being and how to deal with difficult situations with human beings. So I would definitely say stay open to mentors from everywhere.
I agree with that. I happen to have all male mentors because I've only worked with male creative directors since Diane and I parted agencies. And I didn't really choose them. They were just the ones who supported me, and it just grew organically. Probably my biggest mentor I've never even worked with. It's a guy who runs an agency in Australia, and we struck up a conversation, and it's been ongoing for 5 years. And that's a great help. So I agree. You can get mentors from anywhere, and they come in all shapes and sizes. As long as they support you, it's good.
So I suspect that those three guys that were secret feminists became even greater feminists after Shiraz got a hold of them. All right, so we are going to open up to questions. If you're sitting in the first couple of rows, I'll hand the mic over to you, but unfortunately it's a corded mic, so I can't bring it back to you guys. So for the benefit of the recording, I will repeat your question if you don't get the mic. So floor is open. All right, let's go ahead. I'll come to you second. Let's start with you. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 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 Ah.
Yeah, it's just so great. One of the things that, we're happy at work, and, I just really do a big impact without you, no sweat. It's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I really encourage very cool.
Okay, so I'm going to just say that again for the recording. And now it's like such an easy one because that was really short, so I'm going to do my best. But okay, so our questioner has said that she was entering the creative field back in the day when you had to carry your portfolio around and just no one would see her. And so she vowed that when she got into the creative industry at last, she would see anyone who called her. And you have 4 mentors, I believe, that you eventually ended up with. More than that, 4 of them contacted you this week just by happenstance. So it's not so much a question; it's just encouraging us here to mentor women. Yes, because it isn't that hard. Okay, Yes. Okay, now.
Piggyback on that one, and I'll speak really loud.
Okay.
I'm not saying this because I'm looking for work, but I'm saying this because I'm an executive coach, and get women to invest in themselves and pay a mentor than it is men. And what's also interesting is so many organizations will pay for their male executives for outside coaching, but not for female.
That is
So we need to change that. As women, we need to be willing to invest in ourselves or ask for what we want.
okay. Perfect. Good comment. Just to sum up with the very end is just that we just need to be willing to invest in ourselves as women, to ask for our agencies to pay for us to be coached. Men get this benefit and we don't enough. Now, who had their hand up front? And okay, excellent.
I think it'll read.
So I have a sort of a practical question for the panel. I have to say I never had a mentor, and it makes me sad to think about it. And it's absolutely inspired me to mentor young women or older women too that I work with now. I'm in a leadership position. I'm happy to share the wisdom, but the reality is I still have this longing. Where's my mentor? And you know, I sometimes encounter people that seem to have potential, but I'm never quite sure how to ask. It almost feels like a strange dialogue, like, well, you seem to really have it together. Will you be my mentor? It sounds a little funny, like, will you be my mommy? Which is a very, feminine point of view. But I even did broach the question once, and the response was very positive, like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. But there was never any follow through. And I would kind of remind, hey, remember when we were going to have that lunch and you were going to give me some coaching, and it just never happened. So having had successful mentor relationships, my question is, how did you find that person? How did you ask them? And how did you keep it going?
All right. So who wants to do that? Very sorry.
I just asked. You talking about a person who doesn't walk in a room without a negotiation. It's like, so I researched that person's background. Like, I don't haphazardly go and look for people to be my mentor. Part of it is going to the people who have definitely supported me in my career. And then I find out what arrangement would work best for us. Like, say, for instance, Williams and I'll wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning and I have an email from him about a dope article, and that's something that we do all the time. Sean, sometimes I'll call her just randomly. It could be 1 month, 6 months, and I'm like, Sean, I mean, talk, so you have to just really do your research and find out what you want from that relationship. And this is something that we just have to address as women. Know what you want and do not be afraid to ask for it. And don't stop until you get it, period. And sometimes a lot of us, we just get, a little thrown off when we go to that one person and they don't follow through. However, at the same time, that one person turns you down and asks for referrals. It's like, hey, you didn't follow up on that lunch. So do you have anybody else? Because what are your expertise actually?
I'm a creative director.
Okay. So say, hey, I want to explore this, and I'm having a difficult time with this type of creative. Do you know any other person who can help me manage this team a little better? So, and that's another thing, get specific. Because a lot of people will mentor you quickly when you come with specifics. It's like, oh, yeah, I can handle that. I can answer that. And I can move you forward with this. A lot of the times, it's just really vague. And dudes get away with it. No, I've seen it firsthand. I'm the only girl out of 7 boys. So I've seen dudes get away with just, haphazard stuff. They go play basketball together. They go play golf. They drink. My only plus is that I drink scotch so I can hang with the dudes sometimes, but they get a chance to be vague. We don't. And knowing that, we just got to do a little more work.
I think that, first of all, I think it has to be a good fit. So sometimes if it doesn't click, it probably isn't the best fit, and move on. For me, I find the person that I need and I attach, and I just keep beeline. I never stop. I ask questions. I'm just in their orbit all the time. I'm not a nag, because I don't want to be. I just want what I need. But I know that sounds like whatever, but it becomes a great relationship. And I think that I also think that the specificity is key. If you have something you need to know, ask and be specific, and don't be afraid to ask. And it's weird how we're all givers. So whenever we can help, I think there's a natural tendency to help. And people do have issues with time, but I don't know. Once you forge the relationship, there's always time. Those emails are coming. They're that long, and there's a lot of depth to that. And I also think this is kind of a little different, but I was taught as a kid to always go to the top. So I start at the top. And then if that doesn't work, I might go a little lower, but usually it works. I mean, because you go in and I want the best, most experienced wisdom I can get. And if it starts there and I can start forging that relationship, it seems to be like an amazing way to, have that sort of circle of wisdom around you.
All right. And I'm not a panelist. I'm but the moderator. But just real quick, I think that's a really interesting question, and something that someone asked me was a way you might consider approaching it. Instead of someone coming to me and saying, hey, will you be my mentor? They contacted me and said, hey, would you, have coffee with me at Starbucks, on Wednesday night? I have sort of a mentoring question to ask you. And that way it wasn't like I was committing to like a lunch every month, or some formal kind of thing. It was comfortable. I knew what was expected of me when we went to Starbucks. And I also knew if she has a question in the future, she's probably going to invite me to Starbucks. And, the pressure was off and it wasn't awkward. So I hope that helps. More questions? All right, let's go ahead with the black sweater.
Yeah, I guess more of a comment. I'm a female creative director.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was at Kristen, sort of Augusta for 10 years. Now I'm at a small shop. So it was a pretty big place, and I was one of two females there for a long time. And then through the department and a lot of the people, the women I hired. I would say a lot of, I always felt like I didn't have time to mentor, and try to make time. And so I would try to set aside time. But then when I started to realize, it's like even here, I ran into someone that was an intern like 6 years ago. And she was like, like 6 years ago, I was an intern for you, and you said the same. Like, so you don't realize
Yes.
when you're mentoring, I think we try to put this label on it, but like, just be aware every second that you're out there working, that you're sort of mentoring and mentoring each other. They're looking for examples of people like us and what we do, and so I start to think back, I'm like, was I nice to you? Did I say something that helped you? And I
Excellent.
think you get to the place where that's good, but just remember every single second I think that you're working, and when you are looking at work, or if there's some interns there and they are kind of afraid to come in there to like invite people in, and those few little seconds or minutes end up being kind of a little nugget as you approach that
Yes.
that lasts. And when you hear that they remember meeting you 6 years ago,
Uh-huh.
3 seconds,
Yes.
you realize all those little impacts. You don't have to feel like you have to have this your own personal like squad every day.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You're pausing. That was actually very insightful. So just for the recording, sometimes you can be mentoring someone and not even realize it. Our questioner had an intern come up to her who it had been a number of years and thanked her for something she had said, it had taken 3 seconds, but it really impacted her life. So someone up here had raised their hand. All right. Okay. I don't think it's going to quite reach.
Just a statement and a quick question. My statement is that I think it's important for women to have mentors at all points of your career. You automatically think of mentoring as being an older woman, younger woman thing, but actually it's not just people growing older in this business or any business for that matter. And it's very important to have mentors no matter how old you are. So I encourage women to do that. Women talk, that's what we do by nature. It's dismissed as being chatty Cathy's and all that, but that's who we are and that's part of our power. So I think we need to talk to each other, and no matter what age we are. I'm interested in this concept of reverse mentoring. Have you had anyone on the panel or anyone here had any experience with reverse mentoring? I'd love to hear about it.
Okay. The The question is about reverse mentoring.
We had an assignment at the agency that was like big and hairy and whatever, and we had to put together a team, and it was sort of outside of our normal new business model. And I, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who should be on this team, and it was every kind of media imaginable. So there were different skill sets that were necessary. And I woke up and I was walking the halls trying to figure out how to do this. And I woke up one morning, I'm like, Rex. So I called Rex into my office, and I told her the assignment, and she has a very deep knowledge of digital and new media and all of that. And I said, who would you put on this team? And she said, I'll run it. I was like, you're going to run it? And she's like, yeah, I will run it. I'm not going to be I'm a copywriter on it. I'm going to run it. I'm like, you run it. And every single person on the project, I mean, it was a tight, beautiful team. She figured out how to get people invested. She figured out who should stay on, who couldn't, who wasn't going to. She just created this cycle. And then once she found the core team, we all sort of fell in line, and I pretty much worked for Rex, and I learned so much, and it was amazing and extremely successful. And I think that we all have to keep ourselves open to that, though, that we have to accept that there are things that we don't know, and there are things that other people don't know, and if we can all just join forces, we can change the world. There you go.
Yeah, I was going to say that, per your question, how do you approach somebody? I have so many girlfriends and guy friends who we do a lot of mentoring to each other. And so it's not always someone who's above you. It can be someone below you, like you said. But I think that we should always be bouncing stuff off of each other. And I think that it would be nice to have a way to connect more about questions we have. Or I would love there to be some way that we would all have more access to each other in that way. Coffee.
I think the beauty of teaching every summer is that I get so much out of my students. And I tell them I feel kind of bad because it's like I get more out of them than sometimes I feel like I give to them in mentoring and teaching and creative directing. So I would just say, if any of you all, especially if you're in New York, there's a high school now that is dedicated to advertising in a media discipline called I Am. And they are looking for teachers and stuff like that. And even if you just go in and sub, and trust me, you'll get so much out of it, because I turn into a different person after every summer because I get so much out of my students.
Most of us probably have intern programs, and we have about 10. We have about 10 interns each semester, and I spend an hour a week with them. And generally, I pose to them a question of something that I'm dealing with a client, and it's been really, really positive because I'm accessible to them. Which now, when they do have questions, they come to me, and I get to learn how millennials think and solve problems and work together as a team. It's been extraordinarily powerful in terms of me learning and from a team of mentors who are millennials.
Oh, our time is up. Oh, thank you everyone for some really great questions.